We are so back. What's good? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm kicking off the next latest and greatest episode in the How to Play series, where I pick up an archetype, I test it into oblivion, and I work out all the good techs, all the bad techs, all the matchup guides, all the things you need to know to get good at the deck for free as quickly as possible. So if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to let me know what you think of today's list down below, and what am I picking up next? I swear to you, these are not exclusively Lost Box decks, but they're just so much fun. You got to hear me out. All right, so a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to take a look at Dragapult EX. Brand new card out of Twilight Masquerade. A ton of fun. Completely underplayed, if you ask me. Has so much potential going down the line, and it's only going to get better with more cards as future sets drop. Comparing variants. There are a few different ways to play Dragapult. We have focused in on Lost Zone, but I will briefly touch on the others. I'm going to make my case for why Lost Zone won out the day. Why the Lost Zone, of course. Sequencing better. Some little tips, some tricks, some things you should consider when you're making decisions turn to turn, attack to attack. The skeleton plus lists. You heard that right. We'll talk about that later. And of course, all of the techs I've been testing over the past month. There was a few. I did actually put reps into them. Shout, slogan. Man, we've been working at it for a very, very long time, but we finally got a 60 that works. And when not to use the key attackers in this deck. There are about 4 or 5 main ones you should know of. And last but not least, the thing you come for, the thing that helps you get better with the deck quickly is the matchup guide. So I've spent a lot of games working. We're probably about 300 games in at this point. We've been testing it when you get free time in online events, and I have a pretty thorough overview on a lot of it, and any losses at this point are pretty much coming from bricks or my own mistakes. So take that with a grain of salt, if you will. Let's carry on. So let's take a look at Dragapult. So Dragapult EX is a 320 hit point Dragon Terra Pokemon. So as long as it is on the bench, it cannot be damaged by yours and your opponent's attacks. So it's fantastic typing. There is no weakness on this card, meaning it's going to be around for quite a bit of time. It's an efficient attacker. Both of those attacks are 1 or 2 energy attacks. 1 for 70, no preference. That gets your evolving basics. So your Charmanders, your Frigibaxes, your Comfeys, you name it. A lot of key basic Pokemon you can easily pick off. For 2 energy, a fire, and a psychic, you do 200 damage and place 6 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon in any way you like. That is very, very good. But let's continue to look at the entire line. There is value in the stage 1. Many decks are skipping and going straight to the stage 2, but Dracloak in this evolution line has a fantastic ability that provides spotty, situational, shoring up an otherwise shaky turn with its recon directive. You get to look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 into your hand, 1 at the bottom of your deck. If it sounds like Comfey, it's because it's very, very similar, and it's another reason why I'm going Comfey. Some drawbacks. I'm not going to sit there and pretend like this is a perfect card, because it's not. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to keep it honest. I'm going to keep it real with you. It scared off quite a few people for these reasons. Don't let that deter you. It does not hit weakness. Some people, that's more than enough. But I think 206 strategic damage counters goes a long way through the run of a game. It needs a bit of help setting up. So it can't put the energy on itself like a Charizard or a Gardevoir or a Chien-Pao with the Excalibur. And what's wrong with getting a little bit of help? Why do you have to go in solo? We can fix that. And last but not least, it requires a bit of damage modification. So it requires a bit of thinking. It requires a bit of foresight and planning ahead and just kind of working. How do I shore up these holes? You can go with straight up damage mod and hit them hard in the face, or you can start mapping out your turns down the line. Dragapult's not going anywhere in most cases off the first hit, so it is around for 2. But if that did not scare you off and you're still in the video, I hope you enjoyed today's content. Let me know what you liked. Let me know what I can work on. Give me some suggestions for what's next. Stage 1 in the room. I briefly mentioned it. Dracloak. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You keep 1, put it in your hand, put the other at the bottom of your deck. It's a 1-for-1 trade of the Pidgeotto from Team Up about 5 years ago. Same ability, everything. Look at what power creep has done. An extra 30 hit points and no weakness. Nothing to complain about there. Now, what I keep seeing people do is they directly compare Dracloak to Bibarel and Pidgeot. They are not the same whatsoever. Dracloak is a supplemental draw that assists your current engine. It has to go with it. I like to think of it as a more forgiving Comfey. It does not see enough cards to be a standalone. We could have 2, 3 of them in play, but we're only getting 3 cards. That's quite a bit of resource investment to get 3 additional cards. So you see why I'm pairing it with Comfey, a Dracloak, and a Comfey. One is a basic, one is a stage 1. They pair much, much better together. So stop trying to make it its own draw engine. The game is way too damn fast. Reset your expectations with this card. I know we have some incredible draw in the format. Dracloak looks so much better. The Dragapult variants. There are 3 in the room you need to know about. There is the Lost Zone engine, which we are playing today. There is Dragapult Pidgeot. This one I'm leaning towards in the future builds. I do really like the potential with cards coming down the line in August and September. And of course, Dragapult and Charizard. Dragapult is a good card. Charizard is a good card. If you smush enough good stuffs together, you should have a functioning deck, right? That's the way it goes. Dragapult has the flexibility for multiple builds, but no one build fixes all your problems. Lost Zone has its inconsistencies and permanently pitching resources. The Pidgeot build is all in on the rare candy, and it's very predictable, easy to counterplay. And Dragapult, Charizard, there is so much stage 2 in there, you might just brick and never get into the game. But we're not going to leave it there. We're going to take one more look at the differences, some selling points, and obviously see where some of my bias wound up. So we're looking at the Lost Zone first. We have large hand sizes. We just looked at the Dracloak. We know what Comfey does. We get to see plenty of cards. You slap in a Culver's. We are moving and grooving. We're going to see a portion of our deck beyond. That's not even counting any search cards. It is excellent late because we have access to cheap attackers in Cramorant and Sableye. So we have ways to answer the bell should your opponent try to ring it. Single prize board state. If there's not a Dragapult on the board, everything on your board is a 1 prize deck. So we get to pull off all the cutesy tricks of a Lost Box deck. And when we're ready to spring the trap that is this phantom diving monster, we can pop it out. The bully in the room, Sableye. So the format has shifted yet again. I have not seen Jirachis. At the moment, Sableye is a fantastic, unchecked powerhouse. It is back to its prominence until people start teching in Jirachi. Some problems, though. It is difficult to navigate early, which I've got you covered. That's why you're here today. We're going to try to help ease some of those difficulties early on. You got to keep track of your resources. You put one too many super odds in the Lost Zone, you're in a bit of trouble. And mistakes are difficult to correct. Unlike the ones when I'm blundering here, if you put something in the Lost Zone too early, or if you burn a resource too early, there's no getting it back. It's very difficult to come back from that, so you have to be sharp on your game, get your rep. I'm prone to mistakes myself. It happens. You forget to play, you turn your brain off for even a moment, but if you don't mind that, none of that scares you. Dragapult is a very strong deck with the Lost Zone engine. And then, of course, we're looking at either Pidgeot builds or Xatu. I kind of cluster them together because if you had to twist my arm and make me play, I'd probably do both of them in the same deck. So here's some selling points. We can grab any card with quick search. Strong ability. TM evolution. Useful cards in the deck. Getting to set up your Xatus and your Dracloaks. You have a little bit of synergy going on there. It is a simplified strategy, and it's a 1 attachment deck. So most times, your attachment is coming from Neo Upper. Very easy, very streamlined to get going. And of course, you control your damage placement, because in these types of decks, they've leaned into Radiant Alakazam. So they need to put damage on early, and then they're going to move it around late. But the problem, these are the problems. This is why it scared me off. So you need multiple different evolving basics. You need Natus, you need Pidgeys, you need Dreepies. You also probably need a Manaphy. And I've seen decks play Rotom. Like, you need so much on that turn 1. It is a lot to ask. The improvements, however, this is why I'm leaning towards the Pidgeot build in the future, is there's quite a few tempting cards that simplify this even further. I hate being a one-trick pony, which is why you don't find me playing a lot of big basic decks. Dragapult is usually your only attacker. You don't have room for anything else. You have to run with Dragapult. Don't get me wrong, that Phantom Dive attack is fantastic in its own right, but sometimes you just need a little bit of variety in your diet, and I'm not sure right now this kind of fits what I'm looking for. And then we're going to look at the last one. I'm going to touch over it very quickly because I'm not a fan. You can grab any card because I see Dragapults, Pidgeots, and Charizards in the deck. Scaling damage, because as the game progresses, Charizard gets stronger, eventually working up to a 332 energy attack. Stage 2 Bulk. It has the Charizard plot armor. Maybe the EX just magically gets you over the line. Again, it accelerates to the Dragapult in itself, so it's not too hard to find your attachments. Maybe Charizard just has the gas to get you over the line. We shall see. I'm not going to hide my bias here. I think it's too much of a good thing. I see the counts 2-2-1. I see 1-1-2. I see 2-1-2. Like, pick a side and stick with it. By diluting two great cards, I think you're making them both look horrible. Small room for error. Again, you're so many moving parts, you could just miss and not get into the game. Rare candy reliant. Your opponent knows exactly what you're looking for almost every turn. Sure, you play a couple Dracloaks, but no, you're looking for the candies, and that's so easy to play around. Consistency issues. How many times do I have to beat that horse? Consistency, is gonna feel bad in this deck. But if you get into the game, I'm sure it's a different story. How to do well with the Lost Zone. So I covered it in the previous video, and I definitely think it's always worth touching upon. Simplify your deck building. Reduce single copies of cards, up existing counts, minimize tough choices. The reason why this deck has taken me so long to bring to you is that I'm trying to minimize all the tough decisions. I want to be rapid fire, boom, boom, boom. I know exactly what I'm looking for. Oh, that's not a tough decision because I play an extra copy of it. That I'm not worried about because I know it's there. I can find it when I need it. I can toss it when I don't. We can just keep going. And the mental gymnastics are not going to be as tedious as other Lost Zone decks. You could probably get greedy with this deck, but it just makes the long game so much harder. Use a notepad. For the love of God, I'm sitting there at my computer with a notepad, making sure I keep tabs of what I miss and what I did. Track your prizes, your energy, your resources. You're going to be playing very thin counts of energy because you don't need much. So that's one that you keep tabs on. Or maybe your rare candies or your basics, just little things. Note what you have left. And then eventually it'll come automatically and you don't have to stress over it as much. Be prepared for some tough choices. Again, I've done a lot of the legwork to simplify what we can, but there will occasionally be that ugly flower selecting where you're like, oh, I need A for late, but I need B to play now. You will figure it out, but just be prepared. There's going to be the odd one here or there. Don't let a difficult choice weigh on you. You got to keep going. You got to work on the fly. Dragapult has the answers. That's why we have all the attackers. You can build a game plan out of nothing. Have fun with it. This game is a game. It's a game within another game. And that's why the Lost Zone is so addicting. Learning tends to go better when you're having fun with it. Embrace it. Enjoy it. Make little challenges. See what you can improve. See if you can win in other ways. Try to expose yourself to as many different situations as you can. And constructive self-reflection, win or lose. Do you know where things went wrong? I remember playing a game and I'm staring at win condition in hand and I know exactly what I did. I evolved before playing a switch card, and then all of a sudden I went from an automatic win where I had them right where I wanted them to I couldn't attack. They were then able to overcome the deficit I created and I never could climb back from that. That one sits with me to this day. As long as you know where things went wrong, you can improve, and you are a better player today than you were yesterday. Experience is your best teacher. Continue. Make those tough decisions. Try different things. You don't know what works until you've tried it in most cases, or someone has elaborately laid down the plan, but then you're just kind of regurgitating the answers. You should understand where the answers come from, and you'll have a lot more fun. Why the Lost Zone? I'm hoping it's a little obvious here. You just see a ton of cards. You get to see about 25% of your deck in the run of a turn. Colress, look at the top 5, keep the best 3. Dracloak, look at the top 2, keep the best 1. Comfey, look at the top 2, keep the best 1. So you can see 9 cards, keep the best 5 of them, and that's not even counting multiples of the cards. So 5 from Colress, 2 to 6 from Comfey if you have 2 to 3 of them in play, 2 to 4 cards if you have 1 to 2 Dracloak in play, and this doesn't count anything you may or may not have been from Poffins, Nest Balls, Mirage Gates. You start seeing a buttload of cards, and you're going, okay, most of my deck is staring at me. And even after an Iono, you can go, okay, let's rebuild. And it's not hard at all with this deck. Dracloak also saves cards for later. So if there are 2 very juicy cards and I don't want to Lost Zone first, if I don't want to flower selecting first, I can look at them and say which one is good for me now. By putting it at the bottom, it's already pushed to the bottom. So when they're Iono, they're just bringing it that much closer back to me. So go ahead. And Mirage Gate addresses Dragapult's major weakness. So grabbing 2 different energy types is a challenge. Many decks would crumble at that thought. But thankfully, with the Lost Zone engine and Mirage Gate, we overcome that hurdle and we don't even really think about it. Because as you're playing the game and as you're progressing through the stages of the Lost Zone, you're there, you're ready, and the deck is running like butter some days. The Lost Zone engine, we're going to do a quick overview. Let's say you've never played the deck and you are a Dragapult fan coming over. You want to make your favorite card work. What is the Lost Zone engine? By sending cards to the Lost Zone, they do not come back. We unlock 1, 2, or 3 levels of the Lost Zone mechanic that enable powerful toolbox combinations. Toolbox just means a variety of attackers. We're going to have 4 to 5 key attackers depending on what we need them for to fill that situation. So Comfey and Colress will put cards in the Lost Zone. Comfey does it 1 at a time. Colress will do it 2 at a time, and it's just filtering our hand and building up a bigger board. And the 3 stages go as follows. 4, Cramorant. When it has 4 in the Lost Zone, it attacks for free. 110 damage for free is very good in evolving format. Mirage Gate, we just spoke of it very highly. So when you get to 7, we have the fun. This is where the fun really starts. And then when we're going to winning time, Sableye at 10, this is the unchecked menace. I don't think they've created anything close to it since. When you have exactly 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone, you can place 12 damage counters in any way you like. The only ways to stop this are Mist Energy, Code Scroll EX, and Jirachi. I don't see it anywhere, so you're fine. Sableye is going to be fun. Let's take a look at it. So, Lost Zone is scary. I hear it's a difficult thing to play. The deck is slow. Won't I just go to time? Not really. New pilots will be slower because you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, so you're thinking it out, and that's totally fine. Practice, familiarize yourself, speed up the game, get your repetitions. As soon as you know the lines, you will be playing almost as quickly as I am trying to talk right now. It's automatic, it's second nature. You're like, boom, 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 boom. We're good, we're rolling, we're great. I'm not smart enough for this. It's too hard. And this is where I have to say bullshit. Pokemon has a design philosophy, so you can pick up and start playing any deck. There's not a deck in the room I don't think you can pick up and play. The difference, however, lies as you try to master it. An elite player will see a couple different avenues to play that you might not be there yet. However, you both can still play the deck. As you get more familiar, as you learn these avenues through trial, through error, maybe if they just show you, maybe you have a fantastic local elite player and they show you, you'll see those lines as it comes. I've seen people really pick up the game and run with it. Some people need more practice. Some people only need a couple games and then they're in and they're out. And they just naturally see it. Don't count yourself out. Lost Zone is one of those decks. It's not as hard as you think it is. You've got an open mind. You can do this. And I'm not having fun. It's not for me. I know you came here for the Dragapult love. You're trying to make this deck work, but you're just not vibing with it. Play what you like. There's a couple other ways to play this deck specifically. There's other decks in format you'll enjoy. If it's not for you, it's okay. Don't let someone dictate how you choose to enjoy the Pokemon trading card game. We have so many viable decks. The metagame is so diverse. There's stuff in Tier 2, Tier 3 that many people don't even talk about that if you get really good with, you can occasionally beat the higher up decks. And with that said, let's keep moving it along. So flower selecting test. For example, we're going to show you some easy examples. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3. Which one would you take? The Buddy Poffin or the flower selecting? You get stuck between one of two choices. That's up to you. Context, Colress, and Boss. These are two very crucial supporters in your deck. Radiant Charizard and Sableye. This is a situation I hope you very rarely or never have to see because this one sucks. You still have to make it. Which one are you going to take? Context dictates your choice. Was I giving away the answers at the time? Maybe. Make your easier actions first. More cards lead to more knowledge, which leads to better decision making. I like to Dracloak, I like to Colress, I like to flower selecting. It just makes things better, but we'll continue to show. So how do I play the cards that I need to play in the order that I should be playing them? Well, if you're asking that question, that's sequencing. So how are we going to sequence better? If you can conduct a free deck search just to look into your deck, by all means, please do. Some easy cards you can use: Artisan, Nestball, Buddy Poffin. They're usually low consequence, no consequence cards to go in and just grab resources. Maybe do a quick count. You'll watch top players on stream. They'll take like 2 or 3 minutes to sit there and count them. You don't have to be that in depth. Just go look for a couple key pieces and go, okay, I know that's there, I know that's there. I'm like, oh, they're all good, they're very quick. You can also search throughout the run of a game. Identify your prize cards. Not always required, but it is good to do. What's missing determines your correct order of plays. I'm going to reference back one. I was playing a Lost Zone deck about a year ago now, and I did not check my prize cards to realize that all of my grass energy were prized in my Giratina deck. I could not attack with Giratina. Had I been checking my prizes, I would have known, hey, maybe I should be playing a little more aggressively to fish one of those cards out of my prizes. It happens, but this is why we want to identify our prize cards early, to try to minimize those preventable mistakes. Establish a turn objective. It's very hard to play cards in a correct order if you don't know what you want to be doing. So based on what you have in hand, from what you know in your prizes, identify where you want to end your turn. Where do you want to take yourself? Is it a small objective? Is it a large one? Be realistic. You might have a clear goal or smaller goals. Maybe you just want to set up your board. What does setting up your board look like? Oh, I want a couple Dreepies. I want a couple Comfies. I want to get that Manaphy on the board. Okay, those are smaller goals. Those are easier ones. However, a larger one that you really have to maybe go all in on. I need this specific card so I can declare an attack this turn. Okay, how are you going to get there? Once you have an idea of how you're going to get there, then you can start trying to execute it. You need more Pokemon? Do you need to declare an attack? Find a certain card? Don't worry about it. I'm going to show you a few specific instances for the early game and the mid game. Setting up early. This one people always ask me, what do you do? Thin a few Pokemon before you start blindly drawing. I know in other videos I've said to do the opposite, but we have so many other cards that are valuable to us and we play plenty of Switch. We're trying to get a few things on the board. So Buddy Poffin is a free search. We get to check, see what's in there. I'll usually, depending if I want to be aggressive or I want to set up, which depends on the matchup, I'll grab a Comfey and a Dreepy. If I feel like I want to prioritize setup, I'll go double Dreepy if I can. Then I Colress. then I don't have to worry about picking one of those cards off of my top 5, and then I'm Comfying, and then it's more usually an item card or an energy card at this point that I'm looking at. And then, all right, I've set up majority of my turn. Nest Ball is usually the last. I play 4 of them because they are the last card of my turn. Do I think it's safe to be aggressive? Then I'll go grab Cramorant. If I think it's better to prioritize setup, I might grab another Comfy or another Dreepy and just push a little more. Push that Lost Zone. There's nothing wrong. More information leads to better decision making. So the Poffin gives us the search, the cards let us look through, and so on. Poffin usually finalizes our setup or thins unnecessary basics, but again, it's also a free search. Comfy is constantly digging. We need to determine how we're going to end our turn. And Nest Ball, I'm going to rehash it because it is important. We need to assess what's more important, our Lost Zone count or what we have on the board. If it's advantageous to take a prize, we do like to play from behind in the deck. Spoiler alert. Sometimes we'd rather just take the turn off and say, hit me. Do it first. Let's see what you have. But if you see a very weak board, there's nothing wrong with going on the aggressive and doing the thing. Or if you have to win on that turn before they get a chance to play, go for it. Another one that comes to mind, moving to the mid game. So turn 1 has already elapsed and we have a pretty okay board. You put a couple Dreepies into play, you put a couple Comfies into play. Now the turn has come back to us because many decks don't usually hit us that hard, or they only take one Pokemon. Dracloak, typically before you Supporter. If you need a full hand reset, play your Stamps or your Ionos. We're going to start the turn with a Dracloak. We're going to look because it's a safe information gathering ability. Then we're going to Culver's. Okay, now our hand is really starting to grow. We can make better decisions because I know the rest of the pieces. Am I 1 piece away? Am I 2 pieces away? Then I can start Comfying. More information leads to better decision making. Dracloak gives us the sneak peek. Culver's lets us assess. Now we have the fat hand, as I was saying. How close are we to the situational attacker? If we see that we're close, and I'm maybe a piece away from declaring with Dragapult, I'm going to push. Comfy is the deeper dig, 1 piece shy. As long as I can reset back to the attacker I plan on using, I'm going to do it. I might play out my hand to its physical limits, and if I have the opportunity to unfair stamp and put them at a disadvantage when I hand it back to them, I'm going to. And sometimes you just draw that 1 piece. I'm not saying sit there gamble, but you got to know when to push and when to just hold it. Unfair stamp early is always so much better than late. Reading the situations, that comes with practice. And of course, there's one more, finding a specific card. I am going to use Radiant Charizard. So thin what you can before playing a blind draw. We want to find Radiant Charizard. This is probably the best attacker in the deck. Did they Iono it away? If they did, it's going to be so hard to find. So we need to shuffle that deck. If they did not Iono it away, for the love of God, do not shuffle the deck. You're making your life so much harder because all those bad cards are now out of reach. We're going to Dracloak, Comfy, and then you'll either have found the Radiant Charizard or the Nest Ball. And then all of a sudden, we're rinsing and repeating. Radiant Charizard could see 2 to 3 attacks in the run of the game. I'm telling you, it's a very, very good card. And this is a typical order I follow for a lot of my blanketed decisions. If I'm hunting the rare candy, if I'm hunting the Charizard, if I'm hunting anything specific, like a counter catch or something I can't find, this is how I'm finding it. Because each Dracloak makes Comfy a little less punishing. Choose your Radiant. So this is a big decision a lot of decks see. 1 per deck. You have your Kazam, you have your Greninja. Alakazam moves damage that's already on the board in any way you like, so we can manipulate it. Radiant Greninja is a discard an energy, draw 2 cards. We don't play quite a few energy. Radiant Charizard, I'm sure you've guessed, is probably the one that I'm going to lean with for today's video. They all require some deck building choices to accommodate. Radiant Charizard just progresses as the game goes, and considering Dragapult only hits for 200 damage, having a 250 beat stick on a 1 prizer allows us to uptrade or climb back into games we have no business winning. The Radiant Charizard, spoiler alert, is the Radiant I went with. The power of Ace-Specs, my goodness. So these are power spike turns. These are 1 per deck. These are power cards. They serve a specific role. You're looking to swing momentum or steal games when you play them. You have your maximum belt, do an extra 50 damage. Your hero's cape, an extra 100 hit points. You have your Neo upper energy, which fulfills both in the Dragapult's attack cost and 1 attachment. You have legacy energy. The Pokemon this card is attached to counts for any energy, and if this Pokemon is knocked out, reduce the number of prizes it gives up by 1. So it can make Dragapult a 1, it can make Sableye a none, so on and so forth. It's nice. It's like a rainbow energy. Scoop up Cyclone. Is there something on the board you need to remove? Is it damaged? Do you want to reset it? Sometimes you can just pick it up, reset it. But of course, we've talked about it enough. Unfair Stamp, in my opinion, which is what today's video will be, an educated and a informative opinion. Unfair Stamp just offers the most for Dragapult, especially in Lost Zone. because you get disruption, you get item-based gust, you get so much more, and you just get so many more cards. So unfair stamp is the one I'm going with, but they all serve value. That's why they're on the screen. You can build around any of them. I've pulled like 6 scoop up cyclones. So if I didn't have a stamp, I would have been playing a cyclone, just because it's what I had. Some quick maths. I know people like this part. 110 damage on Cramorant. Some notable knockouts you might like to see. Some Comfies, some Dracloaks, some Pidgeys, Monkeydories, Curlias. These are all notable Pokemon, top decks in the metagame right now. If you get a chance to go 1-for-1 with a Cramorant, by all means, it could derail a setup. It could derail some shenanigan plays. Looking at you, Monkeydory, screw you. Raikou. Oh no, did I let the cat out of the bag a little early? Maybe. 20 to 220 damage. This is specifically in here to get those non-evolved V and EX Pokemon. Your Giratinas, your Palkias, your Dialgas, your Arceuses. Gets your Chenpaus, gets your Lugias and your Pidgeots, because they're both weak to lightning. And Miraidon, they've cut their terms, so they're 220 base. Raikou can fill some weight there. Dragapult hits 200 and spreads 60 around the board. So this one here, we're going to mostly be hunting support Pokemon with our first Phantom Dive. Again, leading into the strategy. Mew is 180, Luminion, Squawk, they're all under 200. Raikou, again, in the mirror match, let's say. It's another one you can take out, and then the 6 damage are sprinkling elsewhere. Radiant Charizard is our cleanup crew. He's our wrecking ball. He just comes in and deals with the problem, giving us fits. So Iron Hands, Roaring Moon if it sees play, Goldengo, Raging Bolt with no charm, Teal Mask Ogerpon, which might actually be the better played at Hunt than the Raging Bolts. These are all Pokemon that you can cleanly one-hit KO with these attackers, so knowing when to pull the trigger on which attacker is very important. Some additional notes I wanted to leave you with. Do not 2-hit KO with your Radiant Charizard or your Raikou. There's so many Turos, there's so many damage manipulations. They can heal it, they can remove it, they can make your attack a waste, and if they can buy a turn against you, you very well could have used a different attacker to get the job done. Dragapult and Cram, however, are safe because they're low investment or they're going to be surviving a turn. Count your gates. You're going to play only a couple gates. You don't play the max count, so know when to use them, know when to pull the trigger. You might even have to burn one for a switch attachment. Always keep tabs on your gates because they are very, very important. Sometimes they take the first 2 prizes with Iron Hands, and you need to respond with Radiant Charizard, so it's a gate to it, and attach for turn, and a switch, and then Radiant Charizard's in there, but you got to keep tabs on those other 2 because you will need them. Count your rods. We're going to play a higher count of rods so you can get access to your resources, recycle these attackers, and hopefully get multiple uses out of them depending on the matchup that's in front of you. Radiant Charizard. My goodness. If I didn't say this card was good, I'm saying it now. Radiant Charizard is easily your best attacker for responding on a deck that wants to punch you in the face. After they've taken the first 2 prizes, that's when I start going, okay, is it Charizard time yet? Is it time? Because it's a 3 energy attack, which is 1 gate and 1 attachment away, and we play a handful of switch cards. Hell, we might even have to burn a second gate to get the job done, but I'm telling you, Radiant Charizard to respond and even things up is crucial. Because then all of a sudden it's down to a 2 energy attack, which is 1 gate. And sometimes Radiant Charizard is all you need to win a game. And it just rinse, repeat, and continue. So, what about Sableye? He didn't fit the previous screen. We're going to talk about him here. What are you going to do when this card is putting 12 damage all over you? Sableye is the closer. Sableye is difficult to get to, but Sableye, once you get there, unlocks so many doors. It is the unequalizer. People were crying for this card to be banned a couple formats ago. It is still that good. It is still very, very powerful. It sets up future KOs. It fixes ugly numbers. It knocks out something small and sets you up for another KO. So what you do with your Sableye math is huge. Some common damage placement you'll see, 60-60. 60-60. So maybe it's a small Pokemon, maybe you're softening something up that's bigger, maybe you don't see a clean fix. 60-60, nothing wrong with that. 50-70. So you're taking out a Comfey or a Charmander or another one of those Pokemon and then throwing 50 safely elsewhere. First, mad respect. Or if you're playing against a lot of Gardevoir and you need to take that frickin' draw engine off the board, you go 80 onto a Curly and you put 40 somewhere else. Why am I putting it in an 80-40 split there? Well, in that matchup in particular, they have no problem removing your damage. So you need to put it in an awkward count. But these, by far, most common combinations, I've used Lost Mine damage placement, and Sableye, it feels like a cheat code. Getting to reuse this Pokemon 2-3 times in the run of game, gross. We love to see it. This is why we're here for Dragapult. When to Lost Mine. Again, I'm gonna continue on with this card because it is that damn good. When the coast is clear. No Jirachi. I say this because Charizard may bring it back. You might see it back in Gardevoir if Lost Box continues to be a problem. But if there's no Jirachi, no missed energy, nothing impeding your ability to place counters, please do it. It is so huge. Taking out a draw Pokemon, Hurlia, Bidoofs, Barrels, you name it. If we compare that with an Iono or a Stamp or a Roxanne or anything along those lines, it makes the Lost Mine feel like a cheat code. Fixing the math. If you need to put 30 or 60 damage on something so Radiant Charizard can clean it up later, by all means. If you need to bring something down so that way Cramorant can knock it out the following turn, that's also really good. Sableye is like our active, selective choice belt, but we can pick where all the damage is going. We don't just have to hit what's in front of us, and that can be very good. You can even stall out and just start cleaning up around the board or start sprinkling in for the next turn. It's a very spicy card. Don't force it. Please don't force it. If you're trying to make the math work, you're going 2-2-2, I don't know what to hit, or I had to push a little harder to get Sableye, but you're not really getting an advantage from it, just save it for later. Don't spread too wide. There are decks that can heal off and make all of your damage moot. Of course, the power of Sableye becomes a meta call. Jirachi and Mist Energy will be in and out of lists, making it a mixed tool of success. Do not Lost Zone it too early. If you Lost Zone it, you are freeing up your opponent quite a bit of play. Like, they don't have to worry about it. Make them respect it, whether it's prized or whether it's in your hand. Doesn't matter. They should always be worried about a Lost Mine coming down. Phantom Dive. So everybody just looks at the card, well, I'll just declare an attack and throw 6 on something. Well, that's not always the case. Will Dragapult survive the turn? First question you gotta ask. I'm putting it in harm's way. Will it survive? If yes, start sizing up a draw engine. Oh, that's a nice Pidgeot you have on the bench. Let's start putting 3 on it. Oh, that's a nice Bidoof you have on the bench. I'm going to take that out right now. Oh, you have Barrel on the bench too? All right, here's 6 on that. We're going to take that out next turn. If no, start fixing math. Is there something else that you know your opponent will bring up once you declare this knockout? Is there a Chenpao on the bench? Maybe we'll put 2 on that. Is there's an Iron Hands on the bench that's not currently doing things, but it is there. Maybe we'll put 3 on that. Maybe you put a little bit more just in case they have a switch card. But you know what I mean. Start sizing up so Cramorant, Sableye, and Radiant Charizard can clean up. Phantom Dive is the lead, but it should matter well after it's gone. Do I hit the active or try to move it? Well, this one honestly depends. If you expect them to pick it up, some decks are playing double Turo, a couple pennies, Cyclones. Push it out of the way. We have counter catchers, we'll have bosses, we'll have iron bundles, another spoiler. Get it out of the way. You want to secure KOs with Phantom Dive, whether it's counter catcher, whether it's boss, whether it's bundle. Do not let the Phantom Dive go to waste. Get it out of the way and take out something that you can. You want to at least go 1, set something else up. We will clean up. Pult isn't going anywhere most times. Don't do this. If they play healing, avoid placing damage counters in 20 to 30 clusters. There are 4 cards right off the bat that come to mind. Munkidori flings 30 back, Cresselia flings 20 back, Switch card heals off 30, Radiant Serena heals off 20. These are all cards that could very well see play in many decks, and by putting it in 20 to 30 clusters when those cards are known commodities in the deck, you're just wasting your time. If you see a monkey play, I personally try to take out the monkey first, but that's something we'll touch in the matchups. If I see something with Cresselia, I'll try to put 40 or 50 down, or Radiant Serena, put more damage than they have to, and with Lost Box or anything like that, invest larger clusters. So that way they have to either burn 2 switch cards or you're coming back for it and they can't do anything about it. When to spit and when not to spit. So going for the Dom. Who likes a free turn 1 win? I mean, it feels bad when it happens to you, but to them, it's always nice. Soften something up bigger. EX or V-Star. Maybe it's a Lugia, maybe it's an Iron Hands, maybe it's something like that. If Cramorant could soften them up and just bring them down to that 200 level, by all means, destabilize their board. Did they start Lone Bidoof or Frigibax or Comfey or something like that and knocking it out will really hurt them? Take it out. When not to do it, just don't take a prize. We want to play from behind. Taking that first prize with no real advantage is a waste. Hit a support Pokemon. Rotoms, Lumineons, they're coming off the board with Collapse, Cyclone, or Turo, or even Penny. You're wasting your time. At that point, just set up. Using Cramorant can turn off our comeback cards. We want to play from behind as it gives us more options. Bird is better mid to late because it is a no energy attacker, and you'd rather build up a solid board early. So when in doubt, sacrifice a Comfey. Always prioritize your setup. You'll thank me later in the late game. The Dragapult Skeleton. So here's the 45 card list that I started with. I think it's essential to have at least 3 Dreepies in the deck, 4 Comfeys, your Crams, your 1/1 of everything here, 4 Culvers, 3 Poffin, 3 Nestball. I see decks playing too. You know what? That's a you thing. I prioritize consistency, and I plan on recycling my attackers. A huge risk taker. I'd rather get into the game of Pokemon than not. 2 rare candy, 2 super rod, 15 cards of flex. I have 2 lists for you today. I'm going to show you their matchup breakdown, and then I'm going to talk about the matchup guide for the list that I've run with. So techs and considerations. A month of aggressive testing. There was multiple of us. We were working hard at it. We were trying to see what worked, what didn't work. These are all Pokemon that either were in the list and didn't make the cut or stayed in the list because they were just that damn good. We did try the Ursaluna. I'm not necessarily sold on it. It comes in and out of the format. It's Radiant Charizard, right? Extra 100 hit points. Some more support Pokemon, some funky supporters. I've seen Hassel played in a few interesting Lost Box decks. Raikou, again, cat's out of the bag on that one. Electric Cat's out of the bag. Some tools and stadiums here, even Lost Vacuum, because it's, you know, counterplay and it's a Lost Zone advancement, but it's more of a win more. These are cards that were in lists, that will be in at least one list, but they didn't make it to the final list. Legacy, Stamp, Prime Catcher, the 3 legitimate ace specs that I considered in the end, but there's a lot of hammer hate, so I didn't go there. Prime Catcher, you're not catching me paying $50 for an ace spec in Canada. No. So that will not be our ace spec. Jet Energy, I have a love-hate relationship for this card. Some days it's good, some days it's just a brick. And Pokegear, if you fall for that scam, by all means. So first list, this is the one I took out to the late night and did rather well with, actually. The 2 losses that really stood out and changed my placing, 13 out of almost 300 people. This one here. So my thought process was, I'm going to respect Lugia. The Hammer and the Temple were specifically there for Lugia. You need to get rid of the Legacy energy. You need to turn off the Mist energies. You need to turn off the Gift energies. There was a lot of energies. You know, the hype was strong. I will admit that. I was really respecting the crap out of Lugia. That was the one deck I had on my radar. We had the double cram. We had, oh my goodness, we were just screwing around with counts. We went 4 Nest Ball, the Iron Bundle in case they played Fluttermane. Like, we were really locked in. Pokegear was a scam. If you want to have a better option into Lugia, again, try Blood Moon Ursaluna. Radiant Charizard is big. Blood Moon is big. Like, Blood Moon is very difficult for them to deal with unless they're sinking resources in. So this is one I've worked on. We've really play tested. It has done well, but it's not the one I'm settling on today. Here are the matchups for it, though. Again, I felt very, very good after all of my testing. There was about 150 games with it. So Gardevoir is a matter of who knows what they're doing and how well you draw off Ionos. That's the big one. I'll say Turbo. If you can get a Dragapult down early, you can really start pressurizing their board, because you have switch cards and whatnot and work around it. And the Ionos and the Stamps, you can punish them. You do need 3 means of hand disruption to deal with any sort of Lost Box variant. We did have a very good Snorlax matchup, because once you had the lone Dragapult down, you were just going boom, 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 Phantom Dive until they ran out of resources. Your worst matchups on the board, Chenpao, Lugia. Surprisingly, we just couldn't fix that Lugia matchup well enough. And Pidgeot control with the, oh my god, what's the one? The Cloth. Anything discarding your energy was problematic. Not going to go too far into this one because I've play tested it enough. If you want to ask me questions on it, I could answer just about anything you have in mind. But now we're going to look at the one that I settled with. This is with the revisions. This is with even more testing. The one where I settled with, I have all my pretty cards come in. They're all here locked in, and this is the one I'll be playing until, oh god, probably the end of the year. This is respecting everything else. By trying to patch up other non-Lugia matchups, we inadvertently patched up Lugia matchups. So we went with a more aggressive Dragapult line. We're looking for that candy play turn 2. We are really sticking with our hand disruption, the 3 switches. If you can't tell, I really do like 3s in this deck. The double energy, Forest Seal Stone feels like a cheat code if you can bench the Raikou. Raikou is a proficient attacker. This is the huge difference, is by adding the lightning energy, Mirage Gate can grab fire, psychic, and lightning. So sometimes lightning is just attached so you can retreat with it, and Forest Seal Stone grabbing whatever you need really can bail you out. The dex concessions, I don't have an answer for Mist energy. I don't have an answer for legacy energy. I really don't, and quite frankly, it's something I'm willing to live with. If it comes up again, maybe I'll put the hammer back. Maybe I'll say the board isn't enough. Maybe the Forest Seal Stone isn't pulling its weight. Maybe I can live without the Manaphy and try to put some techs in. But right now, I'm at peace with this list, and this is probably the best list I think I'm going to put out, because it is so freaking good. And of course, the matchups. By teching for everything else, we inadvertently made other matchups better. Did the Snorlax matchup get a little worse? Yeah, we cut the temples, or the jet energies, so it's a little worse on paper, but it's still winnable. Chen Pao actually got a little better because we can kind of trade a little more evenly. We can apply pressure between the Raikus and the Radiant Charizards, as long as we get Manaphy into play and they don't have that Cologne play when they need it. Lugia, I put 50-50. The Cinccino build is a little iffy, but the non-Cinccino build, I do like my chances into, because we can just put the pressure on out the jump and take them out of games. And Pidgeot control is still, it's just bad. Regidrago always seems to have my number, so maybe that's just bias, but deck feels smooth like butter. Gardevoir, it's a matter of who can dig out of the Ionos and who can pick apart the other board. You spend most of your game trying to set up and prepare to weather the storm. Turbo Lost Box, only time I've never felt bad into it, but again, they might innovate and something I completely miss, but it is very, very iffy. You can win it. Don't think it's bad. It's just, it's teetering back and forth. You have to know your lines. You have to know when to pull the trigger, when to stamp them, or when to Iono them, or when to slow roll your way to 4, or when to push, and when to put the Pult in, when to give up on the Pult. Maybe you want to Pult late, that kind of thing. It's a whole gymnastics, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So now we're going to talk matchups for the Raikou build. First up, we got Ancient Box. So this one has the Roaring Moon, the Flutter Mane, and probably the Walking Wake. So we're going to go second when possible. They want to attack us. If they start the Flutter Mane, so be it. Dare them to start 2, because we do play Iron Bundle and 4 Nest Ball to find it. It's not usually an issue. We push it out of the way. Clear the Radiant Greninja. So they're going to be drawing cards. They're going to be trying to really thin their deck. If we can take the Greninja off the board early, that's less for them to discard for Sada. That's less for them to discard and Dark Patch. If we can hand disrupt early, we play Ionos, we play the Stamp. The Stamp paired with a Counter Catcher and knocking out the Radiant Greninja can really buy you turns. Dragapult is also going to clear the way for you. Feed them a funky 1-2-2 map. So what's going to happen is we're going to spend that first turn going second, trying to set up. We don't have any 2 prizers on the board. They are going to take that first knockout. If we have multiples of the Dreepies and the Comfies, we don't care what they knock out. Then we are going to feed them double Dragapult. That is going to be our plan. Dragapult, the first one is going to take 2 hits. We're going to get 2 prizes. We're going to set things up. Then we're going to use another Dragapult, and we're going to start cleaning up the board. So you want to be knocking out the Flutter Manes or knocking out the Greninja if they keep rebenching it. And then lastly, the Dragapults usually survive 2 and 2, and then by that point they're either out of attackers or we've got them where we want them. But that's the map, is 1-2-2-1, and be like, all right, do you have it? Because then they need to have a very small bench size, and they need to have everything. They need to have the thin deck, but we've been keeping Greninja off the board. I've never really had issues with Ancient Box, but again, the pilots always vary, right? There's always that one guy who will run circles around you. Key cards: Dragapult, Counter Catcher, Stamp, Iono. Keep their hand small, disrupt their hand, mess with it early, mess with it often. Dragapult, hound them into the dust. If you can knock out the Roaring Moons, save your damage for Flutter Mane, so you're taking that KO after, your second or third Phantom Dive. You're not going to want to do that. I'm telling you, the Phantom Dive goes a long way. I think it takes you 3 Phantom Dives to get that extra prize, but at the same time, don't mind. You can switch between, you could try to stall out and run a Lost Mine play. It's not that bad. You sometimes can even get a third Dragapult into play, and then they just concede. Raging Bolt. This one is a funky one. Go second when possible. So you want to go second because you get to see more cards. You get a chance to set up. They want to attack first, so if we get a chance to set up and go for the wide board, we can respond accordingly with our Unfair Stamp and potentially start answering them with other cards. Prioritize your Lost Zone count. Radiant Charizard is your best attacker in this matchup. Raikou can also deal with a full-benched Ogerpon or Squawkabilly or Mew or whatever, but mostly it's Radiant Charizard. Radiant Charizard, you're going to try to use 2 to 3 times in this game. That's how you win. That is how you get through this. So if you prioritize your Lost Zone count, maybe triple Comfey first turn and a Colress, that's 5, then it's super easy. Then it's just a matter of getting 3 energy on a Radiant Charizard and swing on that first one. You don't typically want to hit the Charmed Raging Bolt. That's a wasted spot. Don't even worry about that. We're going to work around it with our Iron Bundles. We'll push it out of the way. If you can take out the Teal Masks, it makes them harder and harder for them to recycle energy. But Radiant Charizard is the way. It is the way for this matchup. You can afford to give up about 2, maybe 3 prizes, but I'm telling you, if you give up the first 3 prizes, you have to be ready to go. Zard, Super Rod, Nest Ball, Zard. Super Rod, Nest Ball, Zard, and you gotta have the Counter Catcher or the boss to follow up every turn. Like, it is ugly if you do that, but you can afford to give up 1 or 2 prizes. If you're only a 1 prize board state, those first 2 prizes will be enough for you to get into games. You can still lose the games, but you can get into the games because you'll have a big enough lost zone count. Recycle and reuse the Radzard and counter catchers. I'm telling you, that's how you get through this matchup. The bundles, the counter catchers, the Radzard, just slowly work through them. You can sometimes sneak in a Sableye and then try to ping a few things down, maybe bring a Teal Mask down to 200, so then Dragapult can then size something else up and then go with another Sableye, but it's not always necessary. Or you can knock out a Teal Mask and then you can size up a Raging Bolt and then you can Radiant Charizard into them. But again, Radiant Charizard, keep it simple, don't overcomplicate it. Radiant Charizard, stamps, catchers, Mirage Gates, those are your win cons. Everything else is secondary. Third one, Chien-Pao. This one felt really bad prior to Raikou. What we're going to do is we're going to go first. We're going to deviate from the norm. This is a matchup where you go first, prioritize on destabilizing and setting up your own board, because we go first and they go first. So then we, on our second turn of the game, we then can initiate. We don't have to initiate, but we do want to prioritize. They have a Chien-Pao in the active that Goose is cooked. If they have anything else in harm's way, then feel free to rise up with a Dragapult and start pinging damage. Maybe putting 2 on the Chien-Pao, maybe putting damage on a Bidoof or taking something out. This one we don't mind giving up our comeback cards because we know they're going to just quickly go Hail Blade, and then we're behind again and we just play the catch-up game. Bench Manaphy. For the love of God, do not ever give them a chance to Moonlight Shuriken you. If you're giving them that free play, then you basically ask for whatever's coming. Be first to take 2 prizes. So if they put a Chien-Pao into play, Raikou full bench both sides can knock out Chien-Pao no problem. Sometimes Dragapult has to get in there and, knock something out and then size up a Chien-Pao to come back for it later. That's not always the cleanest way, but if you can Raikou knock out the Chien-Pao first, if they don't bench it, then we're going to try to prioritize the Frigibax and the Bidoofs. Raikou and Zard respond to Chien-Pao in hands. So Radiant Zard is for hands, Chien-Pao is Raikou, and we're trying to skew that trade back and forth until we get our 6 prizes. We put Raikou in harm's way, they have to respond. We put something small, then they're going to go hands, but typically we go Raikou, deal with a Chien-Pao, then they have to respond with another Chien-Pao. If we start the trade, we are fine. We can also sneak in a Radzard and skew the trade at any time, so feel free to do that. You can always start Dragapult, they knock it out with Chien-Pao, respond with Raikou, then they knock out with another Chien-Pao, so then they're down 4 prizes, then you come in with a Radzard, and then the Iono and everything else is messing with them, so then you're daring them to have the Counter Catcher, the Cologne, all of those disgusting cards, or the Prime Catcher or whatever, which they'll use the Prime Catcher early on anyway, so whatever, we're not worried about that one anymore. Hand Disruption, Raikous, Charizards. I feel like I will just run circles talking about this matchup. It is not as bad as it used to be. Next up, Turbo Hands. This is another hands matchup. You got to really, really be ready for this one. Go second when possible. And aggressively push your lost zone count. You need to respond to the first amp. The first amp is coming. First turn of the game, they're going to do really nothing. Second turn, they're going to respond with the amp. Okay, this is Radiant Charizard time. You can still win if you don't respond on the first one, but you have to respond. 3 energy Radiant Charizard. Get rid of it. They're coming with a second one. Start building your board for a second one, whether it's Dracloaks, whether it's extra Comfies, whether you name it. You have to be ready to respond with the second Radiant Charizard. If you do not have the Radiant Charizard ready the second time, you lose. Hand Disruption, time it with your key KOs. So they're going to have the baton on the first one, right? We know that one's coming. So we blow up the first one, they reset it, then they're going to knock out your Radiant Charizard. That's 4 prizes. So we're keeping a 1 prize board state at this point. What are the odds they have a double baton? And when you're spam with the Ionos and everything else, you're going to give them a very small hand size. At this point, what you do is you got to get that second Radiant Charizard. We play 3 Super Odds, we play 4 Nest Balls, we play 3 Mirage Gates, and they've already taken 4 prizes. So you don't even need 2 energy at this point. You need 1 energy. You need to Combustion Blast with a nice Hand Disruption just to secure that game, and then they usually falter and run out of gas. Key cards, Radiant Charizard. He's going to attack 2 to 3 times in this game, so you got to be ready to set up. You got to be thinning accordingly. You got to be working towards that end game. All right, next up, we've got another hands-using deck. Miraidon hands, pretty similar game plan. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Same thing. So they're going to try to do the same thing. Aggressively push your lost zone count. 7 Gates allows us to respond with Radiant Charizard. It is very important to use Radiant Charizard in this matchup. They do put Squawks and Mews and Raikous and other small Pokemon that technically Dragapult could hunt down and go after. But you really don't want to do that because then you're daring them to chase the Dragapult or whatever, but you need to respond to the first amp, whether it's hunting down a Raichu to even things out, or a Squawk, or a Mew or whatever, you have to have an answer for those first 2 prizes. They take the first 2, you need to go 2. You do not want 1, you go 2. Look for Dragapult openings if you can. Dragapult's a big, beefy body, and if you're plucking energy off their board, then it's not too hard. But again, if they have 4 on the Iron Hands and we're not getting rid of the Iron Hands, then it's very easy for them to go Nest Ball, Raichu, Electric Generator, attach 1, attach for turn, switch into the active, and then knock you out. So then you're like, oh shit, what do I do? So it does clear their board. It is very ugly, but again, they have to have the answer. You need to have that answer. Unfair stamp early, punish the aggressive starts. They've already played all their draw Pokemon. Now they're relying on Arvins, maybe researches. I don't really see Ionos in these decks. Could be wrong. You have to decide. But again, it's a Radiant Charizard first matchup. It is 100%. It's Radiant Charizard. Raikou is only if you're like, oh shit, everything's going south, or I need that Radiant Charizard. I know it's in the prizes. I have to go get it. Raikou can knock out a Miraidon, or can knock out one of those small Pokemon, preferably knock out the Mew, and then just stick them with an ugly hand. Our comeback cards will carry the way, and Radiant Charizard will take us home, country road style. Next up, Turbo Awesome. This is the first deck in almost 2 years where I don't look at Turbo Awesome and go, oh my god, I can't win this game, or this is going to be brutal. No. I really like our positioning with Dragapult with the way that it's been built. See if you can identify the variant. Are they playing Roaring Moon? Are they only playing hands? Are they playing the new stuff? Are they playing the NAIC winning list? Go second. Do not give them the chance to cram donk you. Push your Lost Zone count and set up. Bench your Manaphy. They can very quickly get into Moonlight Shuriken range. So prioritize your triple Dreepy, manually attached to a Dreepy. That Cramorant is not worth the attack. I kid you not. Unless you're winning the game, it is not worth the attack. It takes our counter catchers out of the game, which are going to be very huge in a moment. Begin using your hand disruption and your counter catchers. So if we can time a Colress, a counter catcher, and an unfair stamp in the exact same turn, we are going Colress, filling out our Lost Zone, getting the Dragapult active. We are then going to counter catcher. We're going to bring up their Radiant Greninja, and then we're going to plop them with an unfair stamp, and we're going to make them dig out of it. You would be surprised at how much that alone right there swings a game, because we just knocked out their main draw Pokemon, and then we put 6 damage on a Comfey. Put 6 on. You're going to make them burn either double switch card, or they're only going to burn 1, and then that Comfey is going down the following turn. Catcher, Greninja, Colress, unfair stamp, Dragapult active. That's your main. Dragapult early, Dragapult often, stamp early, Manaphy early, and then as the game progresses, after we do that, they're usually not going to respond on the Dragapult. They're going to either soften it up or set it up for a 2-hit KO. That's fine. Dragapult, if it can take 3 prizes before it goes down, perfect. So what it's going to do is they're going to hit into it, or they're going to knock something else out. Then we're going to Iono them. And then we're going to hit the active. If they put that damaged Comfey in the active, that's when you get your Iron Bundle, push it back to the bench, and then knock it out. If you see an opportunity for a boss play, and then you can knock something else out, maybe bring the Blood Moon or Saluna up, and you hit that, and so then they only have 6 left. That's not bad. Now they have to move it, and they have a really ugly start. I've seen them put it down too early. I've seen some really bad ones. Look for the openings. Look where you can really maximize your hits. Iono often as well. Would I cut an Iono? Not an effing chance. Iono, double Iono and stamp is what gets you through this matchup. Anything less is just criminal. Don't even try it. Lost Zone Giratina. This is more delusional than anything. In case you see this matchup, for the 1% of people still playing it, go second, prioritize your setup, lead with your Dragapults, aim for Comfeys or Vs. You're not looking to take KOs right away. Bench the Manaphy, protect your Dracloaks. Raikou and Radzard can knock out damaged Vs and V-stars, so sizing them up early is always nice. Stay even on the prize trades. You want to get down to 4, then you soften a few things up and make them burn the Requiem, and then use your Ionos. Their Roxanne is only live when you get to 2 prizes if you're following this route. I'm not going to linger on it too long. RIP Giratina, but in case somebody's playing it, you're not sure what to do. Try to take your prizes in pairs, soften things up, clean up. If you're spreading damage with Phantom Dive, 260, it's a lot more impactful in this matchup than just the flat 280. Carry on. Snorlax, so this one's kind of funky. Prioritize your setup. Realistically, you can slow play this one and just do a couple Dreepies. I don't mean slow play within the rules. I mean just take your time with it. Get a couple Dreepies. Do not overbench Dreepies. Maybe a Cram, maybe a Sableye. Remember, they're going to be penny looping you too, so maybe you don't want to put those Pokemon into play. Lost Zone the bad Pokemon early. Bye-bye Comfeys. Bye-bye Manaphy. Bye-bye Raikou. They're not going to bench enough Pokemon for that to be good. Huck resources with Dracloak when possible. Okay, so if you see a Pokemon that they might be able to get you with the Flute, put it at the bottom. If you see a switch card that you don't need right now, put it at the bottom. So having just a couple Dreepies and Dracloaks down, then you have the main Dragapult doing the thing. You typically can get your way through it. Iron Bundle will push the Mimikyu or the Chi-Yu to the bench to get them to bring up the Snorlax, because then we can Phantom Dive and hit them, and there we play 3 Rods and 4 Nest Balls, so we can always just keep pushing it back to the bench and knock them out. All right, you have to penny. Well, you can't Misfortune Sisters us. That means we can continue to switch. If you're not pennying, then that means something is going down next turn. So they have to play this game. Being passive, we can definitely run through that. Key cards, again, Iron Bundle, Dracloaks, Culverses. Get rid of the bad cards, tuck the good cards, bundle away the stuff that is bothering you. You can always shred too. You can always do the 70. Pidgeot Control. This one is your worst matchup. I don't know how the hell they're building this. Go second if you can. Advance the Lost Zone count. We're not playing Mist Energy. We're not playing Temple of Sinnoh, so this one can be really silly. Take out the Pidgeot with the Raikou. My only hope for this matchup is if you destabilize their board with either an Iono or something to knock out the Pidgeot, then their board really, it doesn't crumble, but it gets really funky, and they have to work a little harder to reestablish. Time your hand disruption. So Ionos are always nice. If we can Iron Bundle, push up the Pidgeot, because maybe they're only doing like a lone Pokemon up there. I've seen Mimikyus and Pidgeots. So I got Iron Bundle, fill out my bench, and then knock it out with the Raikou and say, all right, let's go. Dragapult to pressure non-Mist Energy Pokemon. If they decide to Mist Energy with the Mimikyu, you might have to Cramorant and just keep spitting on them and hoping for the best. Hell, you can even attack with Dracloak if you feel like it's necessary. They are going to Brave Charm, try to loop it, that kind of thing. But I'm telling you, it gets harder for them to hunt those pieces if Pidgeot is off the board. So take Pidgeot off that freaking board. Key cards, of course, Dragapults, Bosses, Raikous, Ionos. Good luck to you. I've won a lot of matchups against Pidgeot Control, but I don't think the pilots are as good as many of the better players playing this matchup, so I'm not going to sit there and say, oh yeah, this is a free one. No, this is probably your worst matchup because they could have just about anything in their deck. Lugia with Chinchino. Okay, this one is still kind of bad, but we're going to go first when possible. So going first, we're going to push our Lost Zone count. We're not necessarily prioritizing Dragapult in this matchup. Prioritize your Lost Zone. Triple Comfey. 3 in the Lost Zone makes the next turn. So Culverus, double Comfey, then we're in 7. Initiate the 2 prize trade. Raikou is here. If they have Lumineon, if they have a Lugia, if they have something on the board that we can hit that's 220 or less, please take it out. Recycle Raikou and look for another fish, look for another Lugia. Sometimes they bench double Lugias and they're playing the Jamming Tower, not the Collapse Stadium. They don't play Turos, anything like that. Their bait we can come back to. So that's about 4 prizes. How the hell are you getting your last 2 prizes? Backup plan, if that is failing, everything is going south, you got to take the chops off. It makes it so hard for them to respond with, Weird Ears or Chinchinos or anything like that. Make them really expend resources, and once the chops are gone, then life gets so much easier. Some key cards, Raikou, Super Rods, Mirage Gates, Boss's Orders, 4th Nest Ball. Again, this one is better because of Raikou, but it is not clean. It just, you have a better fighting chance than trying to time the, friggin' Temple and Enhanced Hammer. No, I like being able to search my Lugia answer rather than just hoping and praying I draw into it when I need it. Lugia without Chinchino. So this one's the funky one where they have all the big basics. So this build, I've been trying to study this one. It is still kind of newer. I've only seen about 2 Mist Energy in here, so I assume we will get a little more value out of our Phantom Dive. I haven't been having any fits with it because of that. Go first when possible. Similar approach. We're going to prioritize our Lost Zone. We're going to hunt the Lugia with the Raikou. If we can take them out of Summoning Star range that turn 2, then by all means. That just makes your life a hell of a lot easier. Recycle Raikou and look for a fish or second bird. I don't think we're going to be able to take them out of that range because, again, we have to prioritize Culverus. You never know. Sometimes you get very, very lucky and you can run the 4 Comfey. Remove Archeops from play with Pult or Radzard. So if you put a Radzard into play and then you decide to take up an Archeops, they can't Iron Hands respond onto it. They have to bring up Lugia, which then means they're bringing up or another attacker, and then that's a 2 prizer that's now in harm's way. So then we can potentially bring Dragapult or we can bring in Radzard again. Radzard into the Archeops is not the worst play in the world, it's just not the best play because it's very energy, hungry, right? Some key cards. Raikou, again, we are living on the back of this Raikou. Dragapult is looking to see, did you bench your Mist Energy early? Did you think they're not going to be worthwhile? Boss's Orders, again, if we can rinse repeat, because there's a lot of Lumineons running around, there's a lot of Lugias running around. We can't clear them all. So that's the hope. We are trying to get at least 2 or 4 prizes off of Raikou and then trying to figure out how we get the last few. So if we can just rinse repeat with Radiant Charizard in the end, hey, you know what? I'll take what gets us there at the end of the day. But if you miss a beat for the lot, just live with this one. This one is fine. Just It's a 50-50, don't sweat over it. Dragapult variants. I'm clustering all of you guys together because right now I don't really see any issues, and I think Lost Zone is the better way to play. So go first when possible. Assess the board state. Figure out the pressure points. If it's the Pidgeot build, we know Pidgeot is going to be their problem because that's where all their cards are coming from. If it's the Xatu build, well, we know they're going to TM Evo and they're going to set up a Xatu. So what we want to do is then we want to attack one of the Xatus and then start putting damage counters on the second one. And just really take that out. Yeah, sure, you have one Dragapult charged up and ready to go, but that's going to be the only one you're going to have to beat me with this game because I'm going to deny you the rest of them. Good freaking luck. Oh, you play Scoop Up Cyclone? Yeah, I know you're doing that. I'm not worried about your Dragapult taking and healing damage. What if you can't put energy back on the board? Work around the Dragapult. Again, I just mentioned Scoop Up Cyclone. They're going to be picking that thing up. The Dragapult is very bad if you pluck the support off the board. Take out the Radiant Alakazam on site. So if you see this card coming, if you see them bench it at any point, I don't care what you have to do. We're not prioritizing hitting the Dragapult. We're prioritizing on taking all of its friends away. If Kazam is gone, then the damage on your stuff stays on. If they hit your Dragapult EX, that damage stays there. If they hit it and then get to Kazam and move it around, all of a sudden a Comfey is going down with your Dragapult, and that's a 3-prize turn. That Kazam has to go on site. Take that from them, please, or else you're giving them a game. You're freeing up the game for them. Don't do it. Iron Bundle, Boss's Orders, Unfair Stamp. We're taking their engine away. We're trying to make the stamp hurt them. Boss's Orders and a stamp in the same play is nice because then we don't even have to be down on prizes. Doesn't come up as often as you'd think, but it is nice when it comes up. In this matchup in particular, we want to do that. So you're running through, again, Xatus and Natus need to go. Extra Dreepies and Dracloaks, they're also pretty important, but if you put 3 damage on a Pidgeot and then try to Combustion Blast it the following turn, bye-bye. Hell, you might even be able to go with the Raikou. My only beef with the Raikou is that it goes down to Phantom Dive. We're not playing any damage mods, we're not playing anything like that, so if they have a Dragapult on board, it is not the safe play, so you're almost better just running with the Radiant Charizard and daring them to knock that out, and we play a couple switch cards. But usually, pressure. Whoever goes first, I find, usually wins this matchup. Whoever sets up better on that first turn of the game going first wins that matchup. Pidgeot is Neo Upper Energy, Xatu is Cyclone, plan accordingly. Again, they're going to be using Mela, but they have to find Mela, so if you take the Pidgeot off the board when you need to, and damage that stays on their support Pokemon, it's just going to stay on their support Pokemon. So I've never really had issues with other builds of Pulse. I also feel like people haven't properly explored the archetype yet, so we shall see. Next up, we've got Charizard Pidgeot. So this is another one. Same kind of approach. However, we're going to go second when possible. Prioritize setting up your multiple Dreepy. We don't give a rat's behind about giving up the first prize. Give it up. All of a sudden, now we have our stamp, we have our catcher, we have all of those tricks that I think I've rambled on for over an hour with. That's fine. Charizard is something we are going to play around. Similarly to Dragapult, it is a good card, but it is a mid card or a very bad deck when it does not have its support or draw Pokemon nearby. So if you can take out the Barrels, maybe you put 6 on a Bidoof, keep it off the board, or maybe you go 3 on a Cleffa and 3 on a Pidgeot, you got a prize, you know, you knock something else out, and then you set up the Pidgeot for Radiant Charizard to clean up. If you can, my favorite play, let them take first prize, counter catcher a Charmander, bring it up, knock out the Charmander, put 3 on the Pidgeot, put 3 on the Cleffa. I just took 2 prizes. I don't mind trading in 2s. I really don't mind trading in 2s. And then at that point, my next respawn play will be Radiant Charizard knocking out the Pidgeot EX, and then, you know, we're going to pair it with, you know, an Unfair Stamp or an Iono or something, and then say, can you respond to that? And, or even if they just never can get it reestablished, and then each Iono hurts them more and more, and the Dracloaks and the Dreepies and everything on the back line will help us, and it's just a matter of whittling down a Charizard. Can you whittle down a Charizard while they try to take potentially 2 to 3 knockouts? And if you can't answer that, I don't know what to tell you, because it's very easy to reset a Radiant Charizard. So then it's just a matter of Radiant Charizard and take your pick, Cramorant or Sableye. And this matchup does crumble. If they get the jump on you and they really start to push you ahead, like if they get larger than a 2-prize lead, this matchup can be a little iffy. But Radiant Charizard, after some sprinkle damage from a Phantom Dive, takes you home. This is a fair one. You can play TM Devo if you want, but this one, I don't even sweat. I see it and go, okay, whatever, it is what it is. There's no Mist Energy to worry about. There's nothing to worry about. There's no Jirachi to worry about. I can pretty much have my way with this board as long as I get to play the game. So prioritize your setup, and this one feels almost free. The bird is more threatening than Zard. If it isn't a given, the big beat stick doesn't do anything unless it's finding the cards it wants to beat you with. And the last one of the game, oh my god, I forgot about this one. This will be the last one of the day. Gardevoir EX. So this one, take this one with a grain of salt because the deck may change in the coming weeks. Go second when possible. We need a stable board to weather the hand disruption. They also don't do anything really on that first turn until they start playing rare candies and catching you with a surprise factor. If you go second, you get more cards, you get to play, you get to set up, you get to really establish, because if you go on the aggressive too early before you're ready with a large deck size, good freaking luck. Multiple Dreepy, please. Dracloak gets us out of bad hands. It doesn't do you a damn favor if you are just swinging without any sort of Dracloak in the back line, because they're going to stamp you. And if they're not stamping you, they're going to Iono you. They're going to really be putting you out of reach on a lot of your cards. And we need a lot of cards to get into this game. So play from behind. So you set up, they go first. They maybe set up, they maybe do something. Then you get to play a bunch of cards and you get to set up. Then they're going to set up, and then just maybe they have Curlias and they end their turn. You get 2 full turns to set up when they go first because they're not playing rare candy. That is plenty for you. Let them take the first blood. Let them go for it, because we have multiple Dreepy on the board. We have our Manaphy or whatever. They can't do much damage other than take 1 prize. Dragapult early. Now it's time to springboard our big beat stick. So this is where we got to bring this monkey into harm's way. So they took first blood. We're going to counter catcher and we're going to stamp. That is what we're looking for. We've done an adequate job setting up, and we need to really start working. The monkey is first thing that goes when I play this game. Monkey is going down. All right. So I don't care where you put the remaining damage counters. Monkey. So counter catcher, monkey, even if you don't have the hand disruption, get rid of that little thing. They're going to have, if it has the dark energy especially, knock it out. 6 all in one place. You're saving yourself because they have to really work to get rid of all of it. Okay, so pick something, whether it's a Drifloon, whether it's Curlia, it doesn't matter. Just get it down, because Sableye and Cramorant are keeper attackers that can do more damage, or at least keep even in the late game. Knock that thing out. It is a pain in the ass. Control the Curlia they have. So you're gonna knock out their monkey. They're gonna evolve up to a Gardevoir if they haven't already done so. They're going to set up the Drifloon. If they try to set up the resources for the second monkey, I dare them. Go ahead. Monkey is still my #1 dog. They're going to take out your Dragapult. That is fine. That is an Iono. Now you need to either take out the monkey, or you need to do the following. You take out the monkey, or you have to Lost Mine. You have to take out the Drifloon, and then you have to put all 8 to take out a Curlia. If you control the Curlia, you control the tempo of the game, because they can always dig out of the Ionos. They can always dig out of their aggressive plays. If they have 2 or more Curlia on the board, you're in trouble, because that is 6 extra cards for them, and anybody getting 6 extra cards every turn is going to win the game. You need to take that from them. One of them will become a Gardevoir, so then they're going to have 4 cards. If you take one of them from, they're only getting 2 cards, so when they get to that 3 or 2 prize remaining, we can Iono them, put them in a very small hand size, and then we're trying to take the Curlias out. We're trying to pin them down and say, you know what, the only Curlia going to be on the board is the one stuck underneath your Gardevoir. You have to keep the Curlias in check. If they run the Curlia off the board, it's a weird balancing act, because the monkey also has to go, because he causes way too much. Because Sableye, if you have any leftover damage counters, they become damage on you. If you have to pick between the monkey and the Curlia, I would still probably go with the monkey, because they have to then commit the Super Rod to get the energy and the Pokemon back, and they can only usually get the Pokemon back. The energy is a little harder to find in the late game. You got to get rid of the monkey, get rid of the Curlia, and then keep their hands small. Free hand disruption is very, very good. Key cards, again, Sableye is only good when you know the monkey is gone. If the monkey is not gone, Sableye is not good. At that point, I would then be using Cramorant to try to get rid of them. Sometimes you got to boss them. You just keep spitting on them. And if you're running a 1 prize state and they're running a 1 prize state, and you're constantly getting rid of that flippin' monkey, I almost dropped one, then you're just trading 1 for 1 until they either run out of resources or they just can't find that piece. And the second you see them not find that piece, then you go 8 and you go 4 and say, all right, what are you going to do? Curly is going down, and those stamps, those Ionos, they slowly build up, and it's just a matter of who digs out of the Iono better, and that's why it's such a 50-50. I think I have like a 61% win rate versus this deck. The sample size is not large enough, you know, the skill of player changes, the context of the matches. I'm just telling you, monkey is usually their pressure point. When you take the monkey out of the game, a lot of the neat and cool tricks that they do are gone, especially if you still have a Dragapult in play and they can't get the monkey back. Then typically Dragapult is going to survive and get to do a little bit more damage. So taking out the monkey is top priority if you can help it. Make them burn it, make them play second, make them do whatever they need to do. Monkey gotta go. We try to take prizes in pairs, especially. So like I said, if you can take out the Drifloon, you can take out a Curliat. That's 2 pairs. If you take out the monkey by himself, it is what it is. But sometimes you can counter catch or take out a monkey and then maybe put 6 damage on something else that you know they can't respond on, and then we'll get our pairs back. But typically we want to take prizes in pairs in the mid game. Maybe you put 6 damage counters on a Gardevoir that has no energy on it or something like that. Make them do something, because if you knock out the monkey and put 6 on Gardevoir, then they have to do something with the Gardevoir, whether it's Cresselia, whether it's monkey, whatever. They have to do something because you're coming for that freaking Gardevoir with Radiant Charizard otherwise. It's a battle of, do you have it? Do you have it? I hope you have it. If you don't have it, I'm coming for it. Bring it on. Let's go. And Gardevoir is very skilled, so the pilot, I'm sure, will, people metagame and say, well, actually you do it this way, or you do it this way. You know what? This is what's been working. This is what's getting us over the line. That's all I've got to say on Gardevoir today. I could go back and forth. So let's take a look at the long-term outlook. So you've made it to the hour and 20 minutes. Round of applause. Thank you so much. Future-proof. The card is 100% future-proof. It is Dragon-typed. It is Fire. It is Psychic. Any Pokemon that come out in either of those types could be very, very good, and there will always be support for it. Dracloak supports, so there might be a new engine that has yet to come out. Dracloak will complement whatever new engine comes out down the line when we inevitably lose the Lost Zone engine. It'll be a sad day, it'll be tragic, tears will be shed, I know, but that day will eventually come and we have to prepare for it. On a more positive note, there are a lot of really cool cards coming in August and September of 2024. Dusknoir is coming in our Shrouded Fable set, where you can knock itself out and put damage on the board. So the stage 1 puts 5 and the stage 2 puts 13. Play a couple copies of Lost City. You can accelerate your Lost Zone count for your Mirage Gates and put damage on the board. So then all of a sudden your Phantom Dive is doing really stupid math. That's very promising. Let's say you don't want to play the Lost Zone engine and you're looking at other means of accelerating. Crispin is the supporter we're getting in our Stellar Wish, Stellar Miracle set, which will come over in about September, October time. It searches your deck for up to 2 basic energy of different types. Oh wow, Mirage Gate. Reveal them. One of them goes to your hand, the other gets attached to one of your Pokemon. So then you just attach the one that went to your hand, and then all of a sudden Dragapult's attacking in 1 turn. So maybe Luminion for Crispin is a very good play, or, what's that, Tatsugiri? Maybe that'll actually see some play now. But the point is, there's more cards than what's listed on screen that do very well with Dragapult. I believe there's a Stadium expanding. It gives you 8 bench Pokemon if you have a Terra Pokemon in play. Dragapult is a Terra Pokemon. So you can do a lot of silly things. Like, I could go on and on and on and on. Basically, Dragapult is looking really freaking good going forward. And I'm telling you, if you haven't bought in yet, I would recommend doing so. Or maybe wait for the pretty arts. It's a very good card. It's a very fun card. It's an underexplored card. And I think once people figure out how to rock with it, you're going to see it so much. You're going to get sick of it. So if you enjoyed today's video, I just want to say thank you guys. You appreciate it. So grateful for everybody that tunes into the channel time and time again. You guys are awesome. Let me know what I did right. Did I ramble too long? And what would you like to see in the next video? Until next time, guys, take care, have fun, keep playing Pokemon.